Good afternoon and welcome to a brand spanking new segment, rather obviously titled In Conversation With, a segment specially designed to showcase the backstories of individuals who have made an impact. Who can resist an hour of tete-a-tete over a cup of tea on a fine Saturday afternoon? Well, during this hour, we will delve into a conversation around stories that need to be told of modern day icons. Luminary Learning Solutions have crafted this segment so you, our audience, can be inspired to truly thrive. I am Anton Thayalan, the Chief Evangelist and co-host this hour, and I'm being joined in by our founder and destiny architect, Vidusha Nathavitarana, the host for the afternoon, and we will take you through an hour of free-flowing discussion. For today's segment on In Conversation With, it is my privilege to introduce a dear friend and a very prominent coach and a CEO all the way from Dubai, Jennifer Randive. She has 30 years of working experience in different industries from retail, sales, exhibitions, recruitment, headhunting to change management. And today, she facilitates people into different approaches to address things differently. She is the Maverick CEO, the coach, the mentor, the counselor, and the consultant, which she uses interchangeably as required. She empowers individuals to become leaders in their personal and professional life and living. She is the CEO of Focus Direct Management Consultants, based in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, which focuses on executive search, recruitment, and coaching. Podcast host of Conversations on Conscious Change, she interviews with people who share their stories and how they navigated change in business, in personal and work, and with relationships, and come out victorious on the other side. Today, she is on the flip side of the proverbial coin. A very good afternoon, Jennifer, and welcome to the show.
Good afternoon to you, Anton. Thank you for that introduction. Do have to make a slight change, though. I have been doing recruitment for a good 25 years, but in 2013, I actually changed tracks.
Nice.
So it's interesting. Being a change and transformation consultant and a coach, it's always interesting to know that one can change on a dime.
Oh, for sure,
Actually
for sure.
do things in a different way. So thank you for that introduction.
Thank you for being with us. Thank you for taking your afternoon to spend some time with us. So before we dive in to who you are today and what you've become over the years, just to set context, I'd like to take you back to your normative years, starting from India and all the way to Kuwait. Tell us a little bit about, or tell us about your life and how it changed over the last few years in that sense.
It is interesting. Yeah, I actually was studying in India while my parents were in Kuwait. At that particular time, there were no proper schools in Kuwait, so we were shipped off to our grandparents, and that's where I studied. And after completing my high school, I actually came back to Kuwait to join my parents. I learned whatever I had to learn in Kuwait. There were no proper colleges either. And at that time, there was not enough affordability for my dad to actually send us to college. So one had to actually work 3 jobs to be able to get some sort of education added on to my high school degree. And I'm very happy to say this, that if I did not have to experience that lack and limitation at that time, I would not have been able to really recognize the value of a good education today. So yes, that was something that was interesting. So one worked for 3 jobs, and I was a teacher. At that time, I was teaching little students English. There was a Pakistani family that I taught. I was a school teacher in the morning, and I actually used to go and, funnily enough, do all kinds of classes got to do with IBM key punching in those good old days. So one learned how to do all of that. I hated that though. But then I got into wanting
Nice.
to work with people and enjoying working with people. I think one of the things that really inspired me was my dad trying to find me a job to become like a key punch operator, but that didn't work for me at all because sitting and punching away numbers in those particular days was not my cup of tea. There was no interaction. So finally, I did get into a sales job and I became the youngest, I think, management trainee for the Meridian chain of hotels in Kuwait. So I got myself a job over there and worked over there and did relatively well. In around about 6 months' time, I was the head of the procurement division, and I was the youngest procurement manager for the whole of the Meridian chain of hotels worldwide. So that was interesting. And one actually moved on. We never ever had to find a job in Kuwait at that time because people were headhunted for the work that you did. And I always thought that working for an organization was not just waiting to get a job description and try and follow suit only, but it's always very inquisitive and asked a whole lot of questions as to how we could actually do this better and quicker. I think that has been my underlying pattern for a very long time, which actually works out today as well. So one did a whole of that. Was recognized, grew up, went up the ladder, was in retail. I was the buyer for Mothercare of London. In Kuwait, did a lot of retail store management positions, and then decided to get married. So did get married, and I was blessed with this amazing kid called Sasha, who was born surprisingly with Down syndrome. And not only that, but she came along with 5 defects in her. So that was an interesting challenge that me as a mom and my husband at that time had to really face and go through. We didn't know what Down syndrome was. No one in our family had it. And we had to go through this constant going to the doctors, constant visiting hospitals, because Sasha used to be in and out of hospitals all the time with pneumonia and bronchopneumonia. And the doctor said they couldn't do anything, and we had to wait for her to become of age for her to have any surgery. But having said that, with all her trips to the hospital, the doctor said that she had to have surgery. So Sasha did have open heart surgery, and fortunate for us, we went to India just for a holiday, and we had the surgery done there in Madras in the Perambur Hospital. Sasha today is 34 and is a stalwart young lady and is also working for HSBC. So things did change and did become better. But we had to actually shift. So we went to India and then we came back to Kuwait, you know. Husband got it.
Can I just quickly interject there for a second? What was it like to kind of do that? Because it's one thing to kind of understand that from the perspective of retrospecting and things like Down syndrome and issues of that nature are rather well understood now. But 30 years ago, it's quite bleak.
Absolutely. Thanks for asking that, Vidusha, because no one knew what Down syndrome was. We actually had to do a lot of research. My sister and myself did a lot of research on it. We started off a special needs school in Kuwait because of it. We started educating parents to tell them what exactly was going on and how it is that we could actually develop. I remember actually going to a doctor, and when we took Sasha for a second checkup, the doctor says blankly to me, "Oh, she's a Mongol. She's gonna die, so don't waste your money on her." That was what I heard as being a young mom. So at that time, you're right. No one knew what Down syndrome was. They called her a Mongol, okay, because they have Mongoloid features, and it was really ridiculous. And to that effect, people really didn't know anything, and we educated them. We had to educate them.
Sure.
So yeah, with the education and trying to handle Sasha's health situation and trying to still be stalwart and tall and being able to comfort everyone because everyone was going through whatever. So it was just quite a challenging situation at that time.
And what did you do in the sense of finding and digging deep to find that courage? Because genuinely, I mean, my daughter was born prematurely as well, and the doctors did say that there will be learning difficulties and such, and that was a pretty touch and go situation. And when you're a parent for the first time, if I guess it happens the second or third time around, I guess it will be easier because you know what rearing a child is about. So at least you have some experience under your belt. But when it's your first, you're a new mom or a new parent, and you really don't know what you need to grapple with. And I honestly can't assume that people around you are going to be all that forgiving either. And for everyone, it's a real shock.
It was a total shock because they used to say that Down syndrome is a situation where the husband and wife are very, very close together in a bloodline. But my husband was from Maharashtra and I was from Uttar Pradesh. So there was no question of being a close bloodline or whatever. And it was daunting to say the least. I mean, I tried to find somebody who could actually give me some sort of advice. And fortunate for me that I had another parent, and I went to her and I said, well, how do you handle this? I mean, what the hell is going on? Why are these things happening? What have I done wrong? Am I a bad mom? I mean, is God punishing me? So I went through all of that. And when she spoke to me, she only said one thing, which actually shifted and changed my perspective. And she said, well, God gives parents a very special, a child with special needs, because he knows that we've got the ability to take care of them. And that for me was like, okay, I'm here. She's my kid. I'm not going to mope anymore. I'm going to stand up tall and I'm going to take everything that is going to come and I'm going to make a change. So I guess change for me started then. Nothing was permanent, and it was difficult. But the funny thing is that one had the strength, the inner strength, knowing that she was my gift, she was my child. And there was nothing that was going to stop me from giving her the best, which I did.
And forgive the little crooks around my place. I live in a veritable jungle, so you'll find lots of these noises coming through. My apologies for it. But I just want to dwell a little bit on that, because I think that probably would have given a certain seasoning, so to say, to become who you are today. Because unless you go through trials and tribulations of that nature, it's very difficult to coach people through tough times. It's one thing to understand a situation, but it's another thing to empathize. And I think to empathize, it is important to have a reference point. You really can't empathize unless you've been there yourself. So having challenges thrown at you, especially at an early stage in life, I think in a way molds you to become a bit more empathetic, a bit more resilient, and a little less judging of others, I think, which are characteristically important things to have in order to be a coach.
Exactly. I think it has really helped me to formulate how it is that one can create a difference in someone else's life by truly not being in judgment of them or their situation, but really empathizing to help them to get out of what it is that's stopping them from being a grander version of themselves. That is what it is that I do today, as a matter of fact. But that helped me, because I had to go through a whole lot of stuff to really get to know that, to look at Sasha and to find the greatness in Sasha. Because Sasha has actually been my teacher, and I say that openly to everybody. She has been my teacher. She has been able to teach me how to be a parent, how to deal with situations, how to look at things that are beyond what it is that you see in front of you, and how to really delve into the nuances that truly can shift and change any situation for anybody. So not to be in judgment, not to be in any sort of preconceived notions at how it has to be, and this is the right way and the only way and the perfect way and there's no other way. She's actually taught me, as she was growing up, Sasha was known to be an extremely stubborn child, okay? And I, being the perfectionist that I was, wanted to get everything right. She has taught me how to get out of my own way, literally. I'll state an example here. I remember me preparing Sasha for examinations when she was in school. And I used to do all these, question and answer papers and get them all ready. Come on, Sasha, we're going to do this. Till one day, Sasha said, enough is enough. And she sat for 2 hours, you won't believe, with a pencil 2 centimeters away from her writing pad and just would not write. And me going into, oh my God, if you're not going to study, what's going to happen? All that kind of stuff, because I had to be the perfect mom and have the perfect child, till she broke that paradigm for me, and brilliantly. Till I said, what on earth am I doing here? So I told her, Sash, you know what? Let's go to Burjuman and have ourselves a hamburger. Let's take a break. And as we went off to have that hamburger, we did not discuss anything whatsoever about the work that she was supposed to be doing. And when we came back, I said, you know what, Sash? We're going to be playing a game. And she goes, really? And she was shocked. I said, let's go out. But she was like shocked that how can mom actually say to go out at this particular time? And then when we came back, I said, let's do this game. So I changed all the work that she had to do in the Q&A into a game. And in 15 minutes flat, the 20-page Q&A that I had prepared for her was done in a jiffy. And that's why I talk about the different ways of approaching situations, because she has been my teacher.
Sure. I'm gonna let you get back to growing up, because I did want to kind of interject there and make sure that I dug a little deep on that, because I honestly think that circumstances of that nature really does mold you in many ways without you even realizing it. But I stopped you in Kuwait, so I'll let you continue from that point onwards.
Okay, cool. So we were in India with Sasha's surgery and everything, and then we had to come back to Kuwait because you can't stay out of the country for more than 6 months. So we came back and we got everything sorted out. We had a brand new home. We decorated it. We were all excited to start off fresh again with Sasha feeling better. She had not only had 2 open heart surgeries, but she had also had her appendix removed, all in the same year. So then we came back, we got sorted out, we were settled into a brand new home, and 15 days later, Saddam Hussein attacked Kuwait. So then we have a situation of, now what? So we tried our level best, and fortunately for us, I think God's grace has been with me all the time. He's always had my back, and the universe has always had my back, quite honestly. Because at that time, only my husband and me had cash in the home. No one else had any cash, and he had family members. So we had 13 family members staying with us in our home for around about 2.5 months, and we fed them. And I didn't have any house help at all, but we were there and taking care of everybody, which is really cool, and I feel blessed to do that. But then again, we tried to get out of Kuwait, to come back to India to do something. We tried 4 times, twice by ship and twice by road, and all 4 times were not successful. Till I said, enough is enough. I'm going to stay put, and when the time is right, we will be taken out. And sure enough, a week later, we were evacuated because the Minister of Foreign Affairs went into Iraq and organized for us Indians to be airlifted by the Indian Air Force aircraft. And fortunately, Sasha and myself were in that aircraft. So we had to go all the way back to India. And not only that, we had to actually stay at the airport because instead of taking off, the windshield of the aircraft got smashed. So we had to wait for 3 days in the airport in Basra. And I was the only one who had food for the children because I was carrying food for Sasha. And we were only allowed 15 kilos, nothing more. So it was all Sasha's clothes. And I was just dressed with what I had on, with a pair of shoes, and that was it. And all the rest was Sasha's food and medication, what have you. We had 3 other children with us, and we were able to feed them. So again, I say that it's divine intervention. And once you say that you're going to be able to do something, you're given the strength to actually do it. I truly believe in that, quite honestly. So we stayed there for 3 days, and we had fun. I was laughing and joking with all the kids because there were many kids over there who were being evacuated with their parents. Reached India. We had to then board an aircraft from Bombay to Delhi, because Delhi is the place that I stay. No one knew that we were coming, and luckily Mum was in town because she had flown back from Canada to actually be in Delhi, because she didn't know when we were going to come back. So we were there. Got sorted out in Delhi, stayed there for 3 days, and was able to find myself a job on the 4th day. And I started working. So again, a job just came up just like that. And I became the new flower shop manager, something I'd never done before. But took it up as a challenge and said, what can I create here? What can I innovate here? And we did very well. We brought down the inventory of the company. We actually were able to go and do a lot of flower arrangements in different companies and banks, etc. So I was introduced as the interior designer from Kuwait by my new boss. So one has to be creative with one wants to, if you want to do something, be creative about it. There's no harm in actually taking up any job, but really doing a good job. I truly believe that. Any job is brilliant if you put your heart and soul into it. So that was my...
What was it like, though, to not have really kind of worked in India, to work in India for the first time?
Thank you for asking that question. So now I'll really tell you what really happened. The first day that I actually went to work, Vidusha, I did not have shoes. Okay, so it was interesting. My mother had to go and buy me a pair of open slippers, which I'd never worn in my life before. And the first day at work, I remember we had to go to an open area where there were little pebbles, They had these pebbles, roads and pebbles places. And all the little pebbles were going into my shoes, and my feet started bleeding because I was walking around. And I had said to myself, a person who used to wear 18 Egner shoes in Kuwait, okay, really fancy shoes, designer brands and the whole 9 yards, and now in frigging slippers that are open and all those pebbles are going into my feet. My feet are bleeding. I remember coming back home at 8 o'clock at night and telling my mother, I will not do this job. This is disgusting. And she says, you have a daughter to take care of, young lady. Don't tell me that you can't do it. And I thought to myself, oh my God, yes, I do have a child, because my husband was still back in Kuwait. Okay, we didn't know whether he was coming or going or whether he was alive or anything. So I had to actually take charge of the situation, which I did. And fortunately, after a week, we actually went back to the Meridian Hotel, funnily enough, in India, in Delhi, and the flower shop was there. So I said, hallelujah, how cool was that? So then I was in the 5-star environment and looking cool. So coming back to India was again being creative, Vidusha.
I'm struggling to I always ask this question of people who've been through kind of situations you have. Where does the courage come from?
It is the courage, I truly believe, as I keep saying, is divine intervention. When you stand up and you say enough is enough, that I'm not going to be beaten down by anyone or anything, and nobody can take away your self-worth if you don't allow them to do so. I didn't care. At that particular time, I was a mother, and a mother will do anything for her child. So the mother in me came up and actually stood up there and said, I'm not going to let nobody say anything but I'm going to stand up tall and actually make sure that she has it all.
Isn't easy though, especially when circumstances stack up against it.
No, like any situation, for example, we have in the COVID-19 right now, it's not been a hunky-dory time for any one of us. Either we can lie down and play dead, or we can stand up tall and say, there's no time to play small. We've got to stand up tall and actually show ourselves that we are capable of doing things. You can't just wait and watch. And seriously, when you can come into that strength and honor yourself by the values that you are and be within yourself, you get a strength from within. And that's being consciously aware. You have to be aware of what is going on, that you are not being manipulated into situations, that you are constantly aware of what's going on. And the one thing that is really essential is to be authentic with yourself. You cannot be pretending to be good or pretending that everything's hunky-dory. If it's not, it's not. So what are you going to do about it? Because if you keep pushing things under the carpet, they're going to blow up in your face like a sandstorm. So best is to acknowledge, okay, fine, this is happening. But the one thing that I think makes a difference is this. The situations are occurring. You are not the situation. And one thing that I always got was that I am not going to be bombarded by situations. I have to look at the situation because those situations were my choices at the particular time that I made. And if it's not working, it's only me who can change it. No one else can change it for me, but I can help others to actually see what it is that they're doing, that they're stuck and they're limiting themselves when I come into the coaching phase, okay? To be able to ask the appropriate questions of yourself and of others is the most powerful thing because it opens the doors of different possibilities that actually show up for people to actually even look at, because we're consumed by what's not working instead of choosing to see what can work. But we cannot see what can work if we're wallowing in self-pity of what is not working. That's how I got out of my own way. And God knows I've been in my way many a time. Because there's two sides. There are two sides. The perfectionist that people want to be perfect. I was one of them. I had to be Miss Fix-It for every situation.
Sure.
And it did not work for me. So I had to look at a different situation and to look at things in a different way. So yes, that's the change and transformation I have personally been through.
I mean, one last question on that, Jennifer, if you allow me. On the whole, when you make that switch, and it's a very conscious switch, as you said, from feeling sorry for yourself and being the victim and, being a victim of circumstance, to taking charge and actually owning up and being authentic about, first of all, accepting the fact that this is what's going on, and then asking that question of what can I do about it. Many times in many people's lives, I think one of the things that stops you is that, yes, you can be in charge of you and your periphery, but then you have a whole ecosystem around you, isn't it? You have your parents, you have your husband, your kid, and relatives, and in this part of the world especially, and we tend to focus a lot about what other people say and so on and so forth. How do you break from those shackles?
Brilliant question. I'll tell you what has happened just a couple of months back. In January of this year, my mother actually had a stroke, a schematic stroke. So she was paralyzed from her left side downward. Now, to be able to look at that situation, to look at the COVID situation, to look at Sasha not being able to go to work, to look at all kinds of things actually showing up. And medical in this part of the world is not cheap at all. And being at mom's age, she was 88. So one has to be able to look at different things and how to juggle them without being in judgment of yourself. You've got to get out of judgment. I know that I went through a lot of how to, I'm not being a good daughter, I'm not being a good mother. And my husband passed away last year of cancer, right? So I had to actually take care of everything all by myself. So it was difficult to be able to juggle the different things. But more than ever, I think it is about one, really getting to be not taking charge, but being vulnerable enough to actually look at things in a different way. Because if you have posted yourself up as the person who is the strongest person and the person who has all the answers, God knows we don't have all the answers. But what we can have are questions that actually open up. I use a lot of questioning to be able to clear a whole lot of stuff that I'm stuck with. And that's what I help other people to actually do as well, is the questioning, because we have bought into, we've been entrained as to this is the right way of doing it, this is the wrong way of doing it, this is the perfect way of doing it, there's no other way. And this is all coming, not that we are blaming our parents or our teachers, but that is what it is they have taught us, because that is what the best thing that they knew how to do. But then we are not supposed to be leading our life according to what our parents thought were the right things or what the culture says are the right things. The question here that we really have to ask ourselves is this working for us now or not? And if it is not working, why are you on the proverbial hamster wheel going round and round in circles and trying to get to a destination where you're in that hamster wheel and going nowhere? That's the question. Those are the kind of questions that seem really weird, that seem really out of the woo-woo situation that I call. But those are the questions that one really has to start asking oneself. You cannot maintain status quo and even think that you're going to grow, because it's not going to happen. So yes, to answer your question, there will be situations, there are so many expectations from people towards people. What are your expectations? Because unless you are not fulfilled, how are you going to fill anyone else up? Is my question.
Sure.
Word fulfill exemplifies exactly what I keep saying. You have got to fill yourself up before you can start filling anyone else up. Because if you're going to be running empty, what's going to happen to you? You're going to fall to pieces. And that's what we've got to really, sometimes it may sound that we're being selfish, Vidusha. But honestly, what we have learned in the past is not to be selfish, but we've got to actually learn to be honoring ourselves first, because unless we're not full, we cannot fill anyone else up. I hope that answers your question.
Oh, absolutely.
I like the you can't pour from an empty cup. That's as authentic as you can get. But on that note, for those of you who are joining us, we are in conversation with Jennifer Randive, the Maverick CEO, the catalyst, the paradigm buster, the mindset shifter, the coach, the mentor, the counselor, and the consultant. And continuing with that conversation, this is an hour designed to bring inspiration through the backstories of modern day icon. So back to Jennifer. So far in that journey of becoming Jennifer, you are the proverbial phoenix, right? Every time you've fallen down, you've come out, and you've come out stronger, you've come out victorious and determined to make this work. So just continuing from India, did you end up back in Kuwait and then to Dubai, if I get that right?
I came to Dubai. Fortunately, my husband got his job back that he had in Kuwait in Dubai. So he came back to Dubai.
Nice. So earlier on, you mentioned, Jennifer, that recruitment is about 22 decades of invested time. Of all the jobs that you've done, this particular one stayed close to heart. I am curious to find out why.
That's an amazing question, and I really would like to share what it is and why recruitment became my passion.
Sure.
I remember coming into Dubai and looking for a job desperately, and I came from a place where people would recommend me and I would get the next job. In fact, I would be working in a company and others would say, okay, I'd like to have this person to come and join us and do whatever. When I came here, it was almost like so difficult to find a job because I was told that you had to go to recruitment companies to find a job and how we would actually get jobs. So I remember going physically and handing over my resume to everybody and say, hi, my name is Jennifer, and I'd love to meet somebody so I can tell them what it is that I do. And I was always pushed away from the door and said, we will call you if we have something. And for me, I thought that was the weirdest thing. I mean, why? How would you be able to recommend me if you didn't meet me? I mean, how is that possible? It's a different story now, though. So then I went in, and I remember seeing an ad, and it said, no recruitment consultant required. And I actually had been calling one particular company, I won't want to name the name, around about 6 or 7 times, and I would call and call and call and call, and then this thing came up, and I said, right, I have everything that you want for this recruitment consultant. And so she says, are you a recruiter? I said, no, but I know how to talk to people. I know how to interview people. I know how to actually find out what it is that my client is going to be looking for. I'm a brilliant conversationalist, and I would be able to pick up whatever it is that the person is looking for and actually make a difference. And she goes, but you've not got any recruitment experience. I said, if you put me in front of your managing director, I promise you I will come out with a job. So give me a chance. And I remember having to drive. At that time, we were not doing very well because we had just come in. I had to share a taxi with 5 Pathans and hardly any air conditioning. And I was dressed in a suit to impress my new employer. And God knows, for 1.5 hours, I drove in that taxi, almost stopping my breath. And I got there for the interview, and I asked the lady, would you please tell me if you have a ladies' room? I need to freshen up. And luckily for me, I was carrying my perfume and my deodorant and the whole 9 yards. I freshened up, came out looking flushed because my face was red in the heat. And it was matching my burgundy suit, I remember. And I came in front and I had this chat with this lady, and she says, why should I hire you? I said, if you don't, you'll probably be making the biggest mistake, because I will change how recruitment is done. And she goes, are you that sure? I said, yes, I am. She says, okay, I'll let you know. So then I had to drive back all the way, and then I had to be called back. So I had another trip with all my amazing friends. And tolerating in a different suit this time, which I had only 2 suits to my name at that time. But I did make an impact, and I did get a job. So that's how I went into recruitment. But funny enough, Anton, that you asked that question, after 1 week of working there, and one of the consultants asked me a question as to, does your husband want to go back to Kuwait? And I said, we have just come out of Kuwait, and there's smoke there. My daughter just had open heart surgery. I don't think he'll want to go. And she said, no, give me his number. Let me call him. So all this conversation was going on, and the branch manager overheard the conversation, and she informed the managing director and said, she has come here for this job as a recruiter to find her husband a job to go back to Kuwait.
Nice.
So that was an interesting thing that happened. And then my boss that drove from Abu Dhabi to question me and said, I've heard that you are using my company to go back to Kuwait. I said, I'm sorry, but where did you hear that from? And since you are so emphatic that I have done something wrong, I beg to differ. And if you could call the people, I'd like to ask them, where do they heard this? No, I'm telling you, this is a warning. I said, I'm sorry, madam. Thank you very much for your job, but I do not think I'll be comfortable to work in your company if you do not really honor and trust what it is that I'm saying. And after 1 week, I resigned after making a first placement with the company. And then I got fired by one of the females who were there, and she said, "Are you crazy?" Because she used to work in the same company. And I think you know who she is, Anton.
Yeah.
Okay. And she then later on decided to open up her own company, the lady that I'm talking about. And I actually joined her as a recruiter. And I actually went and did recruitment and had a brilliant time working as an employee. And that lady is Shiromi Pereira. And I have respect for her, and she's from Sri Lanka. Tremendous respect for that woman. Because she really gave me the free hand to do whatever. I remember telling Shiro, I'm going to be doing whatever I want to do, and you've got to give me a free hand. She says, have I stopped you? I said, no, but I'm just telling you, in case you do. So I used to actually work. I think the difference is that in every job that I've had, I never ever thought myself as an employee. I always worked as though I owned the business. It was mine. I was the ambassador of the company. And that's what I actually facilitate today, for people to really engage with the business, engage with the company, engage with people, so that you are perceived as an ambassador. You're not just a floozy, sitting around and filling a seat. You're there to make a difference. What is that difference for you? So that's what it is that I do nowadays. So coming back to Dubai, my love and my stuff for recruitment, I went from one place to the other. I changed 2 companies in recruitment. One was SOS, but then we signed a contract, so we could not do any more recruitment because it was a conflict of interest, and I honored that for over a year. And then I remember being asked, if there's anything that you'd like to do, what would you like to do? I said, I would love to do recruitment. And I remember having just 50,000 dirhams in my bank account at that time. And I said, I'm going to do recruitment because it really brought something into me. And I was told by so many people, there are 350 recruitment companies in the country. Are you mad that you're going to do recruitment that way? And I said, they are doing it the way they would like to do it. And I'm going to do it the way I love to do it. I think in those 15 years of hardcore recruitment within Focus Direct, we have had the opportunity and the privilege to work with some dynamic organizations. I have been blessed to work with the government of Dubai, the semi-government, the federal government, and with so many amazing organizations. And we did not go looking for jobs. That was the funny part. It was word of mouth that actually created the shout. And we would choose who we worked with. We didn't take on everyone as our client, because I was known for being the question queen. I would question people till they would go ballistic. But I had to get to the core of what makes that organization tick. Why is the company operating? What is so special about it? Why are people really want to go and work for you? Because before anyone goes and meets the client, they got to meet the recruiter, right? So if I was not being an extension of my company's, the client's organization, how was it going to do justice to the job that I was being given to fill? And we used to do headhunting. I love the idea.
Just because it was something really interesting and something that resonates with us as well. Most of the time, though, most people think that it's counterintuitive not to take something that is just out there. Business is business, and volume drives it. And most of the time, you kind of want to make sure that you get everything that comes your way. How is it that you say no, especially when you're starting out, and especially when you're a small player in a rather big market and competition is huge? How is it that you actually say no?
Good question, Vidisha. There was one thing that I always believed in. There was the 3 laurels of my business were clarity, quality, and speed. If I didn't have clarity in what it is that I was looking for my client, I'd be going around the bend trying to find the right person. It would definitely deter the quality that I was going to deliver, and the speed at which we could actually make a difference to the company. So if I was seeing that organizations were not comfortable with sharing the information that I was asking, instead of telling me to go to the website or this is the job description, you see, a job description for me was what you would ideally like to have your person do. But it's not going to be that way. It's the person who's going to do the job. And that's the person that I have to find for you. So why did the person who was doing the job actually leave? That's what I would like to find out. It is not like, cut and paste and yalla, let's put you in place. It doesn't work that way. It's the person who is doing the job that is going to make the difference. And that's why I had to ask this question, that the companies were not comfortable. And I would say, I understand that you're not comfortable. Let me give you the list of some companies that might be comfortable and who would do you better, who will honor you better. And I am sorry, but I will not be able to actually add any value to you. I would actually tell them that because it was being honest. And if it meant that I had to walk away, I would walk away, but I would have my sanity and not try to prove something that was not. Because it was not only dealing with the clients, I was dealing with people, and people were going to work in that company, and people are important to me. They're not just, it's very important.
I'm going to scale that. Having clarity and, clarity of focus, the quality of your service and the speed in which you deliver it. I couldn't have summed it.
Those are the three laurels of the company. I can't be faffing around, and playing okay and pussyfooting around. That's not my cup of tea. What you see is what you get. And I would ask questions genuinely.
I mean, this is something that truly resonates with us at Luminary and at Hi-Fi. So it's amazing to hear that coming from you, Jennifer. But all of that experience that you've had, that you've sort of gone through, right? The different roles and all of that, how does it make you who you are today? What does that bring to the table? The Jennifer now, the Maverick CEO.
Okay, so somebody asked me the other day, what on earth is the Maverick CEO? And I said, the Maverick is known to be a person who shifts, change, disrupts, interrupts status quo. Because I truly believe that if you're going to maintain status quo, we ain't going to grow, okay? And the CEO is not just a designation, it is my way of showing up. The C stands for conscious, consciously, empowering, and orchestrating. So I would truly think that people, all of us, should actually consciously empower and be that orchestrator for change at a dime, so that we can actually be in the sublime energy of the divine to be able to stand up tall, to actually show up unapologetically and truly become the grand versions that we're here to be. We cannot just sit and wait and watch anymore. I did that for a long time. It doesn't work. I tried to fit in, try to have people like me. I was on Facebook, I was on Instagram, I was all over the place. And we've got to get used to the fact that you cannot be liked by everybody. Okay? There were some people who will hate your guts, and there were some people who will fall in love with you. Hopefully the latter. Okay. But having said that, who are you? So when I was dealing with people, for me, it was not only finding a job when I was a recruiter, finding a job for the company, but I was touching, moving, and inspiring individuals, their lives, their family. Everything had an impact on what I was going to actually be able to do when I was recruiting. For me, I take that very seriously. But then it was about people. I saw when I made the shift and transition, it was funny because the universe always will give you a nudge for you to budge. And most of the time, we are not aware of those things till I was actually called into Yalla, become aware. And funnily enough, there was a change in how recruitment was to be done. And there were certain companies that could do recruitment and certain companies that could not. Okay, there was the change of rules over here. But I remember when I was told that I could not do recruitment anymore, I said, are you sure? I remember the person who was asking me, I said, are you absolutely sure I can't do this anymore? And he goes, yes, you're not supposed to do this anymore. And I said, my God, you've come min Allah. In Arabic, I said, Inti min Allah, that means you've come from God's side. Because I was sitting at the edge, wanting to know what else can I do, because I had done recruitment and I had had my full of it. And when he walked in and said, you cannot do recruitment, I said, wow, that's so cool. I said, are you sure? And he said, and I just told him, this is from God. You have just shown up as God showing up and saying, okay, fine, Jennifer, you wanted an answer. This is it. You can't do recruitment anymore. So then I went to, now what? Okay. But then that's the brilliant thing. Your question, and to answer that is, every single thing that I learned over the time in different jobs, in different situations, in different countries, in different cultures, I added to my repertoire. It actually was creating a brilliant repertoire for me. But then one thing I also noticed was this, that I was the person who brought the energy into all those repertoires. So I was not my job description. I was not the role. I was me. And what I brought to the role was not what other people said I have to do, but what it is I chose within me to add value to. For me, that was the most important thing to actually learn and grow with. To be able to have, and I had, fortunately, most amazing organizations that I worked with, but then I showed up as a different kettle of fish. I considered myself not an employee. I was an ambassador, period. When an ambassador comes in, you take charge. And you actually can talk from that space, that inner strength. You're talking about being a mom and being that catalyst and being that maverick. It is all inculcated into one person to be able to display it whenever it's required. So different strokes I would use for different folks. But that was the maverick, the change. Yes.
No, I'm really curious, and again, as always, we kind of run short of time, and I wish we could keep talking forever, but I guess that can't be done. But before I kind of ask my final question, I do want to ask you this, because you've been through so much and you've done so much as well. If there were 3 pieces of advice that you could tell your younger self, if you can go back in time and tell your younger self, having gone through all of what you have gone through, what would you tell your younger self?
First, I would tell my younger self, stop being a perfectionist, Jennifer. It doesn't get you anywhere. Number 2, Jennifer, learn to be vulnerable and truly get to know who you are in that moment. Don't try and play hard to get. Just be present with yourself so that you can address situations as they are. And third, don't ever give up on you. Even if other people give up on you, you do not give up on yourself at all. That's what I will tell myself. And I keep telling myself, even today.
No, I think that's good advice universally. One last question to end our conversation with. I wanted to ask you this ever since we first met online, and Anton kind of told me about you. I mean, I often tell my daughter that there's no such thing as not having regrets. I think we all have regrets. It's how you deal. I mean, regret is a bad word to use, but you know what I mean out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And 9 times out of 10, those moments when you look back and actually ask yourself, could you have done that differently? It's a futile question to ask, but you ask that of yourself ever so often, and that introspection really does grow as a habit. And if you use it wisely, I think you do learn from those experiences. Having said that, I also think that, regret is something that eats at you and gnaws at you and destroys you eventually. Where do you find that balance? Because you've been through so much. I think it's only human ever so often over a quiet night, over the proverbial cigarette, which I know you smoke. Mine does shift back in time. How do you stop yourself from not walloping in it?
Okay, I have learned in 2013, I had a lot of shift and change happening in my own life. And there's one thing that I actually wanted to find out, because I had being the perfectionist, I had everything in order and perfection, okay? Forms, structures, operating systems, job description, the whole 9 yards. And I was still not being happy. I was not happy. And I called in the consultants, from outside to evaluate me as a CEO. A very vulnerable position to actually put yourself in. But I wanted to get to the bottom of it and wanted to know what was not working. And so we had this conversation. I said, you have got carte blanche. My staff, my clients, my operating systems, everything is there. Please go through it and please tell me, what is it that I'm doing that's not wrong, that's wrong, and that's not working? And which they did. They came back after 1 week and they told me, they can't find anything wrong. Everyone speaks very highly of you. And I said, if everyone is speaking highly of me, why am I experiencing me not being valuable enough? And that's the time that I went into the introspective part. I wanted to get to know who I was, not Jennifer. Who was I as a soul? Why was I here? And what on earth was I supposed to be doing? Okay. And that's introspection that I go through. And it is not about dwelling in the past, Vidusha. What has gone is gone. I don't even dwell in that area at all. I look at my now and I'm very vulnerable with me. And I would say, okay, Jennifer, what is going on here right now? And what can you change? What change is possible that I'm avoiding that if I did not have to avoid, will not create a void? Okay, because there's a void that is being filled in constantly with something that you're trying to escape from and not addressing. So when I ask this kind of questions, the funny part is this, there's amazing awarenesses that start showing up and different things. Now, for example, talking to you both gentlemen today, how on earth do you think that happened? How did I get to meet you, lovely gentlemen? I had asked, show me people who actually resonate with the same thought process that I have, that I can work together with and create a grander future for the rest of the world. That's how you just showed up. I didn't know you guys from Adam. So when you ask this kind of questions, and I ask questions, okay, part of my process of unveiling, uncovering, and discovering is to ask questions. And I do it from a space of conscious awareness. That's where I get my strength from, being consciously aware. I am also an energy master mentor. I work with energy. I'm a Reiki master, theta healer, and a practitioner. But you know what? More than anything else, I want to bring, that's why I call myself a holistic management consultant, because you're not dealing with people separately at work and people separately at home. You're one person. How is it that you're going to bring all of you to work and all of you to go back home, yet feeling whole and complete within yourself? That is what I do.
Absolutely, and no, truly recognize that, and I think that's one of the things that we often tell at our programs as well, that you really can't differentiate between the person who goes to work and the person who comes back home. They're one and the same, and unless you address both of that at the same time.
And the one thing that is great is that there should be no separation. We are separating ourselves constantly to try and prove a point to this area or to that area, and it becomes a waste of energy for no reason. And then we're trying to conform to perform. It's not working. The way you guys work is absolutely brilliant, because you will ask questions and flush out from people what it is that stops them. I do the same thing, and that's why the synergy.
Yeah, for sure.
Synergy is about flushing out, because we all have the answers. The only thing is that we don't have the proper questions to pull that out, for you to navigate, to create, to innovate, and then to celebrate you as brilliant. Because that's what makes the difference. Your brilliance is the difference.
Thank you, Jennifer, for that. Sorry, Vidusha, you were...
You know me, I always want more time.
I know. but
I know.
Jennifer...
That's all. Thank you, Jennifer. That was a wonderful close. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. So we were in conversation with Jennifer Randive, the Maverick CEO, the catalyst, the paradigm buster, the mindset shifter, the coach, the mentor, the counselor, and a holistic consultant. This has been an hour of inspiration indeed. So Jennifer, thank you very much for carving out a moment in time from your busy schedule. I know that. We're really grateful for your time. This has been a thrilling ride with an amazing story, which is purely inspirational.
Thank you so much, Anton, and I hope it's going to help many people out there to really know that each one of us is a true gift, and it's time to awaken to the brilliance of who we are and how we can contribute to one another to create a planet, to create a world that truly is going to be inspirational to live in.
Thank you. And to our audience who've been tuned in, thank you for staying tuned. I hope you enjoyed this segment and it was inspirational as it was for us. We do have another interesting personality lined up for the segment next week, so do watch our social media spaces for the links to join in. If you've missed a part of this conversation, it will be up on our YouTube channel. Do visit, subscribe, and hit that notification button so to stay updated and a shout out to our technology partners, H1, going strong with our third season. And on that note, I bid you a wonderful rest of the day. Stay safe, stay productive.